I don't know if you know this, but your co-host on The Mismatch is a Memphis guy. And I'm sure you've talked about the Grizzlies with him once or twice.
He is?
Is Marcus Smart the most Grizzly guy ever? Like, it's like he was created in a lab. It's like they ordered him on eBay. It was like, hey, we have all these check marks of things that might work in our city with our team, with the way we play, with grit and grind. Let's have an expansion draft. Who could we just pick? And then you'd pick Marcus Smart. I actually do think he's going to be awesome for them next year. I predict a huge chip on the shoulder, rejuvenation. I can't believe they traded me. I'm going to show them. And I could just see him being awesome. What do you think of him just for next year for them?
Well, I mean, you want to really connect it here. Tony Allen goes from Boston to Memphis at age 29. Marcus Smart goes from Boston to Memphis at age 29. And with Tony Allen going there with Boston, at that time of his career, it felt like, okay, this is, it's time to move on from Tony Allen. Then he plays more years in Memphis than he did in Boston after a great start to his career with the Celtics. So with Marcus Smart, I definitely think he's going to have that chip on his shoulder, and he's probably going to come back and try to go for Defensive Player of the Year again, even though he's playing with Jaren Jackson Jr. And at the least, like, their defense, if Smart can tap into more of what he did the prior season when he did win Defensive Player of the Year, like, they could be awesome on defense. Because he's going to be able to replace Dillon Brooks and be a better offensive presence for Memphis. He's not going to, he's going to chuck shots like Dillon Brooks, but he's better at scoring. He's far better at playmaking. He's going to be more of a connective piece. And with Jaren Jackson Jr.'s development on offense, I think for them, they suddenly have a really interesting offense that and still be able to retain defense. Because even though, all of us like Tyus Jones is not the defensive player that Marcus Smart can be. So for them, I think it makes sense in terms of the player you're adding. It's just the price feels like a bit too much today when we look at, the value of those draft picks. But from Memphis' standpoint, I totally get it in terms of trying to instill that culture you're talking about that Tony Allen once did, but also just add some kind of scheme flexibility where you're not losing something defensively when Tyus Jones is on there with Ja. You can still be strong and versatile and have guys who can make the right plays off the dribble as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what was the problem with last year's Grizzlies team? Well, pretty easy. Maturity. They needed more adults, right? So now Brooks goes. That's going to help them. We're going to have post figured out my shit Ja Morant, hopefully. It would be nice to have a normal version of him again.
Smart could help there too.
And Smart could help there too. And Smart just being an adult with the different, same kind of thing with how the removing Smart from the Celtics team is going to change the energy, right? Whether it's going to be better or worse, we'll see. But they needed something to be different. And I think for the Grizzlies, adding him, the fans are going to fucking love him. Like, they're going to love him. And Verno's going to be saying to you like the first month, oh my God, I can't believe you gave us Marcus Smart. You fucking idiots. But here's the thing.
I was texting Bill last night.
I was telling him, you guys are so fucking stupid. But here's the thing. I made this point a couple times during this season. The way he plays, this would be my fear. I'm just planning this for the Grizzlies fans. Just remember I said this. I think he's going to have a huge chip on his shoulder here, et cetera, et cetera. That dude's body has been through a lot. We watched it. We watched his entire career on the Celtics. All the charges he takes, all the collisions, all the big guys that he goes against, the bigger guys that he is defending in the post, and they're just like dropping their shoulder into him. You're too young to remember Ben Coates, but I used this analogy at some point last season when Ben Coates was the best tight end the Patriots ever had until Gronk. And he was awesome. He was awesome in video games. And every time we threw him the ball, he would just get hit by three guys and he would just drag these three guys down. And it was incredible. And guess what? By like 1998, it wasn't as incredible anymore because he took so many hits. And that's my fear with Smart. Like, we've seen this with other basketball players. These guys that play this style, it's not a style that lasts into your mid-30s. There's definitely a shorter shelf life for it. And I felt like there was a lot of wear and tear with him last year. He had the ankle injury at one point, But defensively, he just couldn't stay in front of guards in the same way anymore. So the guy that I voted for defensive player 2 years ago, that guy was kind of gone. It popped back up a couple times. There was that one Philly playoff game when he was just awesome. And it looked like last year's Marcus. But for the most part, you think like Miami couldn't stop Jimmy Butler. Wasn't really even guarding him that much. Philly, Harden had those 2 games where he torched the Celtics. Harden was somebody smart, used to play really well against. So there was a lot of red flags with him last year. And that's what makes me think, like, if you're the Grizzlies, just be careful. The guy who's like, hey, man, you should buy my car. It's great. No, you don't need to check it out. Just take it. No, it's in perfect condition. Never had an accident. And then you get the car and things start going wrong.
Well, that's why it's a gamble for Memphis. You're betting, if you're Zach Kleiman, their general manager, you're betting that you get the version of Marcus Smart you're talking about, that he can get healthy and return to the guy who won Defensive Player of the Year and for years was an all defensive caliber guy, a stopper against guards, a guy who could battle against bigs. I mean, remember, like, he was once somebody defending Kristaps Porzingis very effectively, right? Like, they'd stick him on KP, never mind like true bigs. He could do it all. And you're betting that happens. However, like another Patriots example here, this could be the Celtics letting a guy go right as the decline is beginning. And we saw the signs of it this past season, as you said, with he just didn't have that quickness moving laterally on the perimeter. So I think for Boston, it makes sense from their side of things too, where if they think that this is the beginning of a Marcus Smart decline, and if that's the case, well, I mean, it's a massive win for Boston and it's a loss for Memphis. And if it's not, it could end up being a mutual win for both teams. So I think logically it makes sense, especially for Boston with the picks that they're getting and considering everything we talked about with KP, what he provides. But I get it philosophically from Memphis's perspective for like a lot of different reasons. And I think
and what do
them,
they care about picks in the 20s? They've made so many of them at this point. You can spare 2 of them.
It's sort of like Oklahoma City and like Indiana and a lot of these teams that are consolidating. They just have so many picks, or in Memphis's case, they have so much young talent on their roster. I mean, that guy may never play at all. They cut a guy they drafted during the season. So, I mean, like, I think they're in that point where like these other teams, they just have too many picks or too many good young players, where for them, it's a diminished value asset. Whereas for Boston, it's very valuable to add a young guy on your bench that you hope turns into something.